Western civilization is completely exhausted. It hasn't a clue. All these wonderful methods that were going to lead us to Platonic truth and union with God and the gates of the heavenly city. You know, the gates of the heavenly city is Spanish Harlem, and God looks like a psychotic on crack. So we have to sort of back off to the archaic moment, which was the last sane moment that we ever knew before we committed ourselves to this shell game launched by the monotheists and their stooges. Catholicism is just such a strange thing. There's an amazing scene in the Philosophers of the Boudoir, where this woman is assaulting her nephew while having homosexual sex with her sister-in-law, while hanging a goat, while doing something else. And in the center of this incredible scene of multiple perversity, she looks up from her work and points out to the abbey with the whip raised above her. She says, "And I am being a bad example." Which is just the icing on the cake. If you are not a bad example, what's the point, And as you can tell, there are an infinite number of ways of slicing the perceptual pie when you're contemplating any phenomena, and consequently the potential for understanding in any given situation is infinite. And it was as though this was being realized in me, and I would go out and I would pick up a leaf, and it seemed to me that by looking at this leaf, the sum total of the science of botany was somehow pouring into my cognition. And why am I talking about this? Rescue me, somebody. I'm happy to be back here. I always like staying in this house because it's haunted. It is haunted. Have other people said this? The haunting takes the form of people walking around in the middle of the night after 3 a.m. just padding around. Here's one way to dissolve the ego. You blow it apart. And like mercury, or that's another good metaphor, like smashing a flask of mercury on the floor in front of you, the stuff of psyche, the fluid metal of the self, sends back then 1,000 reflections. And they all are distorted reflections, as they would be, and they all are peculiarly familiar, hauntingly familiar, because guess who it is? It's your good old self, but put through some filter, some distorting lens of transformation that gives you the impression that, you're now encountering a swarm of alien insectoid, machine, elf, toy, cyborg viruses, or something like that. What could have been the question? Ah, yes, got it.
Talk to the Pope? But it's
well, you have to hang. You don't talk to the Pope. You hang the Pope. Then you talk to the Dalai Lama after he watches the Pope hang. A new syncretic religion? Well, you could just say, "Fat man, give me that guitar." Sure. I'll do the plucking from here on out. No,
Cooked because killed by flashlights.
Killed by cow farts. Well, nobody said life wasn't fraught with peril, right?
Or humor.
Or humor, yes. I have no doubt that if you took 10 people selected from this group and trekked days east of Death Valley and, stayed up all night, and then everybody took 8 dried grams of mushrooms and hooped and hollered and waited, that something would happen that would be so appalling and so destructive to our preconceptions of what's possible in this universe that you just come out of it, pointing into the desert and saying, But I'm careful. I don't doubt that appalling things can happen, and that reality can be completely pulled to pieces. And I don't know what that means, but I want to really try and deal with that on my terms, and that's a kind of fear. It's a kind of holding back. That's why, I know people who seem to me superhumanly reckless. I mean, they tell me the things they do, and I just shake my head, because of the power, of the vistas, of the energies that they must have laid their hands on. It's too much for me. I'm a simple scholar and bookish collector type. I'm like Brother John here. We like our home and hearth. But that's the challenge, you see. That's the weird thing about the psychedelics. It is a path, but in a sense it's the end of the path. And then what do you do? Now it's up to you. It's no more about, the guru says in 5 years you'll make progress, or if you just keep eating the spirulina or fiddling with your crystals or something. It's that, no, you've arrived. Now, what do you do with it? Are you really want to be a wandering figure at the edge of civilization, glimpsed occasionally in your tattered cloak with your wild ravings?
Well, that's not the only option. Mitch and I were talking this morning about...
Thank you.
It's the kind of guy I am.